Good morning. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Governance Committee meeting of the 20th of April 2022, and I declare this meeting open at 10:04 a.m. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded, and I remind attendees to take necessary safety precautions. I note that we have received 3 leave of absences today. We have one from Mayor Power due to personal leave, we have one from Councillor Lane for personal leave, and we also have one from Councillor Raven as he is representing the city as acting mayor at a federal election commitment. On the screen, you will see that the motion. Do I have a mover for the motion on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously by all of us in the room. I will now refer to item 4.1, and I have Ms Caroline Bugg to enter the discussions. And I note that item 4.1 is a deputation that is being presented by the Department of Resources. So please note that while the deputation report itself is not confidential, attachments to this report are deemed confidential. So before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No, there being none. I note that 4.1 is confidential. It is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session as the confidential attachment contains information in relation to the council's annual budget. Do any councillors wish to move us into confidential this morning? Thank you. Councillor Bradley has moved a motion to move us into confidential. Thank you. Councillor Kransky has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hall, how did you vote? Sorry.
Against.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that went against?
Against.
Oh, thanks, Councillor Bannon. Sorry, I thought your hands went up. Thank you, councillors. The motion to close the meeting is now displayed on the screen. Oh, sorry, we've done it. So sorry, I'm a bit behind. And we are now going into closed session. Oh, sorry, I forgot to vote. So sorry. Hands up. Who's in favour of moving out of confidential? Sorry, I'm a bit lost today. That is unanimous by all of us in the room. Councillor Bannon, are you voting us back out of confidential? Thank you. That's unanimous for all of us. So I'll just wait for it to be turned back on. Beautiful. We are turned back on. Is the public gallery back in? Has anyone let them back in? Thank you. Thank you. I have a motion on the screen. If you'd like to cast your eyes over the motion that's on the screen. It's just the two. Do I have a mover for the motion that's on the screen? Thank you. Councillor Murphy has moved. Councillor Bradley has seconded. All those in favour of the motion that's on the screen, please raise your hands. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously by all of us that are in the room. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You are free to go. Thank you. It was an interesting conversation. All right, and we will now move on to item 4.2. And before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare on 4.2? No. I note that 4.2 is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into closed session. This is the Executive Financial Performance Report. Do any councillors wish to move us into closed session for this item? No. There being none, I would just remind councillors that we're going to talk in open session. So just a reminder. Thank you. Over to you, Ms Bugg.
Thank you, Chair. Item 4.2 is the Executive Financial Report for the period ending 28 February 2022. Just noting that the February report doesn't reflect the second budget amendment. Those changes will be seen in the March report. The operating result continues to be in surplus at $36.6 million at the end of February. This result is ahead of budget of 14.9 and continues to be driven by lower than budgeted expenses. Just noting the risks that we spoke to in the report is the recruitment of suitably qualified people continues to challenge many areas across the organisation. It's probably no longer a risk, but now an actual issue that that is impacting on the organisation. There is also, at the time of writing, an emerging risk with a quickly rising cost of fuel, both direct costs via the fleet, but also in supply chain. That has now been mitigated, or at least the pressure of that has been relieved for a period of 6 months by a federal government decision. In relation to operating revenue, the variances in the revenue continue as they've trended in earlier months for this financial year. So the fees and charges are in front of budget due to the high housing market activities, and also there's variance in water usage impacting both revenue and expenditure equally. Operating expenditure is currently running 3% behind budget, which is a variance of $14 million. There are a number of vacancies in employee costs across branches, is reflecting the delays in the recruiting that I spoke of. There's also a significant variance in the water purchases of $2.85 million. The wet weather is also impacting delivery or expenditure, particularly in the Parks branch, but it is expected that the recovery costs from the recent flooding is likely to offset that expenditure level. The capital expenditure, I'll just speak briefly to that. The report is a financial report only. Logan Water continues to be a contributor to the largest variances year to date, particularly construction in stage 8 of the Logan Home Sewage Treatment Plant, gasification project, and also the York Street fit out. There are no particular issues in the rates and charges at this point in time. We, as always, keep a close eye on that, particularly with the flooding event. Sundry debtors, there are still 2 Department of Main Roads invoices outstanding. There's one for $100,000 and another for $200,000. They are being followed up very regularly by both finance and the roads team. The invoice for 337 has been cancelled and will be reissued in line with an adjustment in the scope of works in that particular project. I'm happy to take any questions if I haven't covered.
Thank you. Just before I go to Councillor Stamp, I just want to welcome Councillor Raven. He has just rejoined us at 10:35 a.m, so welcome back. Councillor Stamp, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just checking on the debtors for main roads again. Sorry, I'm for sure everybody just mentioned that before, I may have missed it, but obviously they've hit 90 days. I'm just curious to see how they're progressing.
Yeah, both the roads team and the finance team are in contact with the department on that. Unfortunately, they're particularly slow in paying. The 337, there was an issue with the scope of works, and we probably invoiced a little early on that one. The 200 and the 100, we do expect payment. We're just following up regularly.
Thank you.
Lovely. Any further questions? Nope. All right, we will put a motion up on the screen for you. Thank you. Wrong motion. That's all right. The motion is up on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Do I have a seconder for the motion on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Stamp. All those in favour of the motion on the screen, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to item 4.3, sale of land for overdue rates. I will now refer to item 4.3, and before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No, there being none, I note that 4.3 is confidential. It is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into closed session as the confidential attachment contains information in relation to the above matter. Do any councillors wish to move us into closed session for this? Councillor Bradley has moved us in, would like to move us into confidential. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Raven has seconded the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried by all except for Councillor Hall. How do you vote?
Against.
And Councillor Bannon?
Against.
Thank you very much. We will now suspend the recording and the meeting is now closed to the public. We are now in confidential session and therefore the recording of the meeting will be suspended. And recording is back on. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to put up on the screen? We're just having some technical difficulties while we're getting this motion up, so please bear with us for a moment. Lovely. There is a motion on the screen. Do I have a mover for the report's motion as displayed? And it is an amendment. It does have the property assessment numbers have changed very slightly. So thank you. Councillor Murphy has moved. Do I have a seconder for the motion on the screen? Yes.
Just what was said confidentially, do we need to change some of those numbers?
Through the chair, I'll confirm that before council
Next week. Okay, thank you.
Lovely. So do I have a seconder for the motion on the screen? Thank you. Oh my gosh, Councillor Russell, I was having a mental blank. I'm so sorry. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along to 4.4. Proposal of new building titled Trust Accounting. I will now open item 4.4. Before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I will now again refer to Ms Bugg to open public discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Item 4.4 is a proposal for a new policy for trust accounting. Finances revise the policy and also develop procedures to support the policy. The previous policy was brought up to date and we used the opportunity to update the format and create a formal procedure. On this occasion, we're looking at replacing the previous policy in its entirety. Both the new policy and the policy that will be superseded are in your papers today. Just broadly, monies held in trust cover such things as security deposits for subdivisions. We have an amount in trust for capital funds for the Rural Fire Service and other bonds such as water hydrants also held in trust. The procedure covers a number of key items. And they are how and what records are to be kept by the branches or the business units, how the finance branch maintains the trust account, including the process of review, noting that all trust funds are held in QTC trust account, and also that annually the funds will be reviewed to determine any transfer of unclaimed funds to the public trustee. Just noting the last time that unclaimed monies were remitted to the public trustee was in October 2010, so we do have a good rate of returning the funds when we're required to do so.
Thank you. I have a question from Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Caroline, just to be clear, when I was reading the two policies, there's no track changes because it's a completely new document, but you didn't have any substantial changes to them and the procedure just reinforces what you've been doing already? Good. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any questions? Nope. All right. We have a motion on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Raven. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Or I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. That marks the end of Ms Bugg's report. Is there any general business for us? No. Anyone have any general business for Ms Bugg this morning? No. Lovely. Thank you very much. And then we will move on to item 5.1. It's Total Asset Management Plan, and I will ask Mr Andrew Herford to please enter the discussions. He's coming? Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, I'm sorry, Annabelle, I didn't know who you were, but I was just going to say,
That's okay.
Dr. Burke, if you could introduce.
Through the chair, thank you, and apologies for being late. Annabelle's head of our corporate asset management program as program leader, and she'll be presenting the report.
Through the chair. This year we've updated our total asset management plan. The current recently endorsed plan for 2020-21 has been updated to reflect or to align with the new corporate plan. And also an additional review due to a change in our valuation methodology for roads. You can consider this plan as it's the annual report in the asset management space and a reflection of our financial sustainability in asset management. Our financial sustainability at present is reported through the asset sustainability ratio, and that ratio, it's based on our capital renewal expenditure divided by our depreciation expense. And you'll see in the report we've this year, as at 30th of June 2021, our ratio has dropped to 65.7%. Now that's really reflecting a change in the methodology of our roads depreciation expense. Over the 5-year, our average is 78.2%. In line with Queensland Audit Office, they've actually brought out a proposed, well actually it's just been endorsed, the Local Government Asset Sustainability Framework, where they'll transition for large councils, and that's Logan, Moreton, Ipswich, councils like that, to the asset renewals ratio. And that's a more accurate reflection of sustainability. The asset sustainability ratio, it has some issues in that it assumes consumption of assets on a straight line basis, and we know that with roads, bridges, you know, all of our infrastructure assets, they don't really depreciate the same each year. So with this new asset renewal ratio, the transition to the ratio from the 2023-24 year, that will actually look at what we've budgeted, so what we're planning to fund for asset renewals, over what our asset models are modelling. So what we've modelled in our asset management plans, not depreciation. So our depreciation correlates over the life, but not each year. And so we have also noted in the total asset management plan some 3 key initiatives in our asset management strategy that will help with that transition. So they're already underway, and that's the Enterprise Asset Management System, so the continued implementation of that, and the foundational project, bringing in asset work order and maintenance, so bringing that through each asset class. We're also introducing an infrastructure asset governance plan. So we have that at a very broad basis, but with the Enterprise Asset Management solution, that should, we're bringing in a framework for how we're going to manage that information and the regularity of that, of update, who can make changes to the information. And it's including our GIS, finance systems and our work order systems. And then we're also implementing a more advanced asset renewal modelling program as well, and that'll complement the EAMS project, the Enterprise Asset Management System, and will feed into our annual budget process. So at the moment, we're not really reporting in detail that model versus what's budgeted. So you'll be able to see if there are any funding gaps and what we're going to do about those funding gaps. So that'll feed back into our asset management improvement plans. That's it.
Thank you. I have questions from Councillor Bradley, then Councillor Heremiah, and then Councillor Stem.
Thank you very much for explaining that. I've continuously, over the years, spoken about sustainability during the budget process, and so I won't go into detail about that now, but I'm just curious if from this report, will there be some sort of budget implication from it?
Through the Enterprise Asset Management System, so there has been an implication with that. And that supports our improvements. The asset renewal project is based on our business as usual, the corporate asset management program.
I suppose where I'm going to is, if we endorse this now, is there a financial impact later on as a result of this?
Well, we're hoping this is a snapshot. This total asset management plan is a snapshot of where we are today. It's
Yes.
actually not asking for improved funding. If we endorse that we're going to go ahead with our enterprise management asset management solution and our renewal modelling and the improvement in our budgeting process, that will, I guess, how do you put that, reap benefits, so both in efficiency gains and also in additional capital expenditure that you may be able to afford in the future.
Right.
So it's yeah.
Okay. And the three things that you mentioned that you're targeting,
Yes.
do they have financial impacts?
No. So the EAMS project does. That has a financial impact, and that's subject to a separate report to council through.
That's what I wanted
Yes.
to gauge.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Herrmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question, not about the content of this plan, but rather the document. So I see that it's using the outdated branding. What is the plan to update this document to be standard with all the other updates in council that have new branding and are using the normal style guide? And what process do you have in place in your team to ensure that your documents are standardised with other documents in council?
Yeah, this document is updated annually, and it would have been updated just before the recent brand change. So it is an annual process, continual improvement process.
So when you update it again, you'll apply the new style guide.
That's
and it'll
right.
Be all
That's
normal
right.
like the other documents in council.
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Just talking about the asset sustainability ratio, which you were talking about, you sort of answered some of my questions already. But with the note regarding this is a result of the reduction in renewal spending and a significant decrease in depreciated expense. The reduction in renewal spending, is this a one-off trend, or is this something that's going to continue?
It's a one-off trend.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Yep.
right.
So there are many reasons behind that, and that's normally addressed in council's performance report, annual report. But COVID, flooding,
Those sorts of
things.
factors.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to check that wasn't a trend. And the other one was on page 31 of 37, there's the asset remaining useful life table with all numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. I noticed that, can you just sort of explain what that table means? Obviously there were things like landfill and quarry, computer hardware, heavy machinery, library materials, minor plant, all tabled as number 4. So what does that table tell us? What is the guiding?
Yes, so
what is that? Yeah,
Table
what's it used for?
if we go to the next page, these are based on condition of assets. So condition 4, it requires renewal. So the average for that asset class of assets require.
So what
renewal.
happens next? I guess what from this, what happens next? Like, is this then
Yes.
guiding the branches to know what needs to happen, and how is that all funded? I guess I'm just trying to understand the...
Good question.
Yeah.
So the asset renewal project and our current renewal modelling techniques as well, this feeds into that, and they would be, the 4s and the 5s would be the top priority for renewal. So
Okay.
that's how it's fed into the model.
All right.
So 4 is saying the condition is it's scaling down to the worst condition. 5 is
Okay.
the worst. Number 1 is the top.
Yeah. So there are areas that council need to be focusing on effectively in terms of their
That's right.
priorities for council.
That's
Okay.
right. And council, in looking at that as well, can look at the service usability of those facilities as well. So they might be, some we might accept a certain level of deterioration, some that we wouldn't. We can also look at whether we want to continue with those assets as well.
Okay. So if I wanted to
Yeah.
find out some more detail on those, I could come to you to see a bit
Yes.
more detail?
Yep,
All
definitely.
right, thank you.
Thanks. I have a feeling I know where Councillor Stamp was going with that table and that sort of thing. So I think she's probably curious about the landfill and the quarry being number 4. And I think we probably all would be very, very curious to know why that is number 4 on the list. So if you could come back to all of us with a bit of information on that, I think that would be very good.
Sure.
Thank you. Lovely. There is a report motion up on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion that's on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Thank you very much. Please raise your hands to vote in favour. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And that marks the end of Dr. Burke's reports for us. Do you have any GB for us today?
I do not, thank you, Madam Chair.
No? Does anyone have any GB for Dr. Burke whilst he's in this committee this morning? No? Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you to all of you. All right, we will now move on to item 6.1, and I will ask Administration Manager Ms Kay Sullivan to please enter the discussions. Before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? Nope. There being none, I do note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session due to the confidential nature of council submission as at the date of this report. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? No. There being none, I just remind councillors that we will stay in open session, and I will hand over to Ms Sullivan. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. Report 6.1 refers to a legislative review of cultural heritage acts. The department is seeking written submissions from stakeholders on the changes proposed in the options paper that you would have seen, and council did prepare a draft submission which was submitted to the department. Just some additional information. We don't have a set time frame at the moment for completion of submissions being made to the public, and I understand that it would probably be a number of years away from implementation with regard to changes to the legislation. If you did have any specific questions that you wanted to ask, I do have Jodie with us today, and she is our Native Title and Cultural Heritage Officer. So I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? No? Lovely. And I would like to thank Jodie for popping up and seeing me yesterday and talking through this report with me and explaining a few things. But there is a report motion on the screen. Councillor Bradley has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That was a quick one for you. And we will now move on to 6.2. And before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? It is an amendment to the contracting plan. No, there being none, I will please allow Ms Sullivan to open public discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Report 6.2 refers to an amendment to our annual contracting plan. I'll take the report as read, but just wanted to highlight a couple of points as well. As part of our strategic contracting procedures, we are required to produce an annual contracting plan, and this is aligned to Council's budget. This document isn't something that we do once a year and sort of put in a drawer and hide away. It's a live document which really demonstrates significant forward planning. This report means we're coming back to Council with some amendments because we monitor the market, look for opportunities to aggregate our spend, and work closely with our customers to understand their needs and when those needs change. It's important that Council's contracting plan is a true reflection of expected procurement activities, and I think this report is a real example of demonstrating transparency, good governance and appropriate risk mitigation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Herrmeyer, have you got anything? No? All right. The report's motion is on the screen. Do I have a mover for the report? Thank you. Councillor Herrmeyer has moved and Councillor Bradley has seconded. Now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. That has been carried unanimously. And we are now up to 6.3. And again, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? This is on the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee meeting recommendations. No, there being none, I will now again refer to Ms Sullivan to open public discussion.
Our report 6.3 refers to the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee recommendations. I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We're flying through it. Councillor Heremiah, have you got anything?
Happy to move.
Thank you very much. We will put the motion on the screen, and Councillor Heremiah has moved that report. Do I have a seconder for the report? Thank you. Councillor Russell has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. That has been carried unanimously. All right, we are now on to 6.4, the surrender of an easement A in Windaroo. I will now refer to item 6.4, and before we open discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No, there being none, I will again hand over to Ms Sullivan. Thank you.
Councillors, I'll take the report as read, but just wanted to highlight a couple of points. Council has installed sewage infrastructure on common property at Augusta Green in Windaroo. As we tried to register the sewage easement, which on your report is shown as easement S to protect the infrastructure, we discovered that there was a historical easement A, which had not been removed from the title. This report is a transactional report to be able to remove the historical easement so we can register the relevant documents with the Queensland Titles Registry. And we believe the easement in question is considered to be a historic titling error. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, flying through. Amazing. The report's motion is on the screen. Do I have a mover for the report on the screen? Thank you. Councillor Hall has moved. Councillor Murphy has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Lovely. That marks the end of Ms Sullivan's report. Do you have any general business for us?
Nothing today, thank you.
Lovely. Any general business for Ms Sullivan this morning? Lovely. Thank you very much. Flew through yours. Love it. All right. We are up to item 7.1, and I will now refer to item 7.1, and I will invite Mr Robert Strachan to enter the discussions. But before we open, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No, there being none. I do also note that item 7.1 is confidential, and I note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session as the confidential attachments contain detailed budget information. Do any councillors wish to move us into a closed session for this item? Thank you. Councillor Karansky is moving us into confidential. Do I need a seconder? And do I have a seconder to move us into confidential? Thank you, Councillor Raven. All those in favour of going into confidential, please raise your hand. That has been carried by all apart from Councillor Hall. How do you vote?
Against.
And Councillor Bannon? Thank you very much. We will now move into confidential, and anyone in the public gallery to please pop outside. All right, and I have a report on the screen, and that has been moved by Councillor Stemp. Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Raven. All those in favour? Sorry. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. I wish it was chocolate. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we are on to item 7.2, the formation of the Chief Executive Officer Performance Review Panel. Thank you. Just waiting for one moment. Now, before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a leave of interest a conflict of interest to declare? Sorry, getting my words mixed up today. No, thank you. I will now refer to Mr. Strachan to open public discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Through the Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the establishment of the Chief Executive Officer Performance Panel as per the CEO Recruitment, Appointment and Performance Policy and the CEO Performance and Contract Management Guidelines. You may recall last year a report was brought up to create the CEO Recruitment Panel. This is now establishing the Performance Panel for the CEO. The role of the performance panel is outlined in the report, but essentially the panel facilitates the process in relation to the performance of the CEO. I'd have to say, as per the guidelines, call for the panel to liaise with all councillors in setting up the framework for the ongoing performance of the CEO, so it's not something that they do in isolation. And there's also a requirement in the guidelines that the Mayor, following the review of the CEO and the establishment of the new performance agreement, brings back a confidential report to the City Governance Committee. So it isn't the performance panel doing it by itself, it's certainly undertaking the process with all councillors and key stakeholders. We'll take questions.
Thank you. I will now open the floor to councillors for discussion. Any questions? No? Give me one moment.
Did you want to outline? Well, you know who they are.
Okay. We have an amended motion on the screen that has the panel consisting of 4 members, unless anyone else would like to nominate from the floor. No? Everyone's happy with that? Do I have a mover for the report that's on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Murphy has moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Raven has seconded the motion on the screen. I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, I'm now on to item 8.1. And before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have an conflict of interest to declare? No, there being none, I will now hand over to Mr. Strachan again.
Thank you. Through the Chair. This report's a regular report that comes back. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with a written report about the matters reviewed at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 22nd of March 2022. The report does include an attachment which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of March, so I'm happy to take the report as read and answer questions.
Thank you. Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Robert, on page 155 of the agenda, it refers to 6 overdue audit items that are of concern and being closely monitored. Is that something you can talk about in public, or do you just want to flick me an update about what those are?
I'm happy to flick you an update if that's okay on those.
Yep, no problems. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions this morning? No. Lovely. All right. We have a motion that is on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion that's on the screen? Thank you. Councillor Bradley has moved. Do I have a seconder for the motion on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. I'm sort of half up. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That's been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And that marks the end of Mr. Strachan's reports. Do you have any general business for us today? No? Any general business for Mr. Strachan? Nope. Lovely. Does anyone else have any GB for the day? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, through the chair. Today, I just wanted to acknowledge that as at tomorrow, we have served our 2 years and halfway through our term. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this council and to serve our community. Congratulations to my fellow councillors. We're halfway there. Thank you.
Ditto. Thank you, Councillor Murphy. It's been an absolute pleasure so far, and I am loving my job. So thank you for reminding us all that we're actually 2 years in, because I'd totally forgotten. That completes today's agenda, and I declare the City Governance Committee meeting of the 20th of April 2022 concluded at 11:22 a.m. Thank you very much.